there are some skills that no matter which technology there is, will always be valued. But there are some skills that just are always desired by an employer. You can learn AI skills. The stuff is out there. And to be honest, it's not super hard to use, is it? Being a good communicator, conscientiousness, discernment, critical thinking, being hardworking, those types of things, they'll last forever.
Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Temte. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today, we have Hugh Martin joining us. He is founder of Procountancy and a CIMA Case Study specialist. Hugh is a former CIMA prize winner who served as director of content for a leading accountancy tuition business. Through Procountancy, he prepares finance professionals around the world to pass the CIMA Strategic Case Study on their path to the CGMA designation. We're throwing around lots of acronyms today, but we're going to talk about accountancy training, and I'm just so happy to have you on the show today, Hugh.
I'm so happy to be here, and this is really cool, right? I used to watch your podcast when there was like double-digit guests, and I think you're in the triple digits now, right? So, it's cool to be on here, and it's a real honor, I have to say, because you're like a legend, I suppose, in this space too, Andy. So, I'm really happy to be here.
Well, very, I'm a legend in my own mind. That's for sure. And we are here. I just want to give a shout out to our mutual friend, Andy Perkins. Andy, if you're listening, I know you will be. Thank you for connecting Hugh and I so we can have this very rich conversation about how to grow more qualified accountants around the world, and especially in the United States, since it is really challenging. A lot of people are retiring. Not a lot of people are coming into the profession. So we have a real employment challenge here in the U.S. Hugh, before we really get going, what's the elevator pitch version of your story?
Well, that is a really good question. And you know what? It's so easy to go off into like a politician's answer and say a million different things. But if I was to boil it down super simple, look, I'm from the west of Ireland, have to get that out there. And basically I started off working accountancy and finance, broad range of jobs, moved into professional education. I sort of took a bit of a leap of faith, and I worked, as you said, as an executive director in a large accountancy tuition provider, education company. And then I started my own. And this has been the most fulfilling journey. I would say probably the most difficult journey of my life, but it has been a fantastic journey, and I absolutely love what I do. It really is. It's a fantastic industry to be in, and that's me, I suppose, in a short nutshell.
Yeah, teaching and training others to achieve their goals through education, especially through licensure and certification, is so rewarding. Hugh, your rocket booster moment. If you had to pick an event in your life that just really put rocket boosters under you, what would that be?
I'm going to say the day I started my business, and I think you'll know what this is like yourself, right? Because you teach business, but when you do business, it's like a whole other ballgame, right? Because we understand the finance side of things. Okay, no problems. Like you and I would know these things fine. But when you start doing things like sales, marketing, customer service, like real life compliance as well, that's really when, not only as an entrepreneur, right, that I got like much better. Obviously you have to do it, otherwise you don't make any money. Also as a teacher and a writer, because we're in business teaching about business. And the great thing about private ed is like, who better to teach about business than people doing it every day? And so I've gotten way better myself, even from, dealing with clients myself, recruiting people, managing people through my own business. I've gotten way better as a writer for accountancy materials and a teacher as well. As sort of strange as it sounds, but it's like we're doing what we're teaching, right? So I think that's definitely been a big moment for me.
Yeah. Well, my moment was What do you mean I got to do sales and marketing? I spent my entire academic life avoiding the marketing
Yes.
department.
Yes.
Why? But we are all sales people at our core and in our hearts. We all have to sell ourselves and our ideas and
Exactly.
so just get used to it, Andy. So anyway, let's talk about CIMA. Here in the United States and really around the world, the CPA licensure is what most people connect credential-wise to the accountancy profession. But take us behind the scenes. What is CIMA and the CGMA designation? Let's demystify all those acronyms. And as you're going through that, this, management accounting in the CGMA, MA stands for management accounting. How does that differ from public accounting that most Americans would picture when they hear the word accountant?
That's a really good question. So myself, I am a CGMA designation holder, right? So I prepare candidates for this exam, but I am one myself. So I started off my career on a training contract. And here in Ireland, it's very normal for people to do either CIMA or to do a different type of accountancy qualification. You guys have, US CPA. And for me, when I was doing it, there was a lot of things that I felt could be better, could be worse, whatever. And that's sort of what started my inspiration for the business. CIMA itself is an acronym for the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and it's the biggest body of management accountants in the world. Now, in the US, the term management accountant, you don't hear too much. Sometimes you hear cost accountant, but it would also cover roles like finance business partner. You would see people who hold, and I suppose just to make your listeners or viewers aware, the institute is CIMA, the designation or what comes out of it is the CGMA. Okay, so that's the qualification effectively. And so you'll see people over here in Ireland, they'll say, I'm CIMA, and that basically means that they have the CGMA designation. So many acronyms, but basically this designation is one way in which you can say, okay, I am a management accountant and that has been verified. So just like the CPA by an external body. You see people, as I said, work in cost accounting, risk management, treasury sometimes, a broad range of roles. We call one of the main roles, I suppose, that people have if they are a CGMA designation holder is a business partner. So I know sometimes you see that in the US. There's a lot of US companies here in Ireland, and that's what I used to work as, was a finance business partner. And effectively, to say, like, in a really simple way, what management accounting is basically accounting designed to aid decision makers, right? So like you're working in a business very often in industry. That's the jargon that's used. You're working in an existing business and you're helping people in that business make better decisions. So for example, I used to work at a business, big retail business, and I would work with the person who is the head of security, and they might have a budget for 300 million euros. And they say, right, what are the costs going to be for every single store that we have over the next 5 or 10 years? And what is the impact of, let's say, an increase in the minimum wage? What would be the impact of a change in social insurance? And how do we manage that? And so that is basically the role of a management accountant. It's a very broad role, but that's what it is in a nutshell. And it's a very fulfilling career. And I suppose what I like to say to people who are not accountants, it's like medicine, right? Like, the whole field of medicine is ginormous. You have oncology, you might have, a brain surgeon, you've all different types of fields. And that's what it's like in finance. CPAs, they cover a certain area of finance, and then management accountants cover different areas, but it's all within that bracket of finance, so that's it really.
Yeah. I chuckle at the term business partner, and I just love that, because many people who are not in finance accounting, I would lump legal and compliance into this as well. These are all the departments of quote unquote no.
Yeah.
that people who work in marketing, sales, tech, operations, so business partner gets colored a little bit by
Yeah.
the expectation that when you walk up to one of those business partners and ask them a question, the answer you're going to most likely get is no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that's sort of the connotation of an accountant, is that they're sort of stiff, that they're in a sort of fixed compliance mode, that, everything is about return on investment and no consideration for intangibles. And I think that's something that we'll probably touch on later on, is like how the role of an accountant is changing over time, from that sort of stereotype to something that's a bit more value adding in a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's so to our listeners, please don't think that I'm saying that those departments are truly the departments of no today, because there is a great deal of change that is happening. And this term business partner is slowly but surely becoming a truism in many businesses. Hugh, so if I'm sitting in the United States here, and let's say I hold the CPA license, why would I want to get the CGMA credential on top of CPA? Or why would I want to pursue CGMA in lieu of CPA potentially?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let's say like you're working in like an FP&A role, and you've been doing it for like 5 or 10 years, and you're an expert in FP&A, and it's super important for the business. I used to work in FP&A, like I know what it's like. But you're thinking about your career and you're sort of saying, okay, what's next for me? Like, what can I do beyond this? Right. And the trajectory for someone like that, it obviously depends on the business, the size of the business, and how they're structured. But let's say you're looking to go either to the next level, or maybe your goal is actually to get to the CFO level. The reality is that you need to understand more areas of the business and finance overall, really, in order to get to that level. And of course, some people will be listening to this and say, look, I don't necessarily need to do a course to do that. And that's true, right? You don't. I mean, you can get a promotion. You don't need to, go back into education. But very often what happens is you're moving up, and actually you're learning on the job these other areas of finance. And the bits of information that you're getting, possibly it's good quality information, possibly it's not. But if you were to cover off, let's say, all of those other areas in advance, my pitch to you is that you would have a better time once you are promoted. You would have a much easier time. You'd be much more impressive when you get to that stage, because you would have learned about things like, business strategy, finance risk, corporate governance, all these things that you would probably have to just sort of learn as you go once you move up. And the other thing as well, and it's a good question, like, why would I commit myself to, another prep process? Like, I've gone through this, sort of, let's say 2 years of getting my CPA. Do I really want to go back and do more education? What I would say to you is like, even the signal to your manager, or to, your manager's manager, that you want to go back in and do some professional development and education at that level, is definitely going to suggest that you're interested in moving up in your career. I mean, take everything out of it. If you're saying, okay, I want to commit to something that's, let's say, a 3-month prep period, which would be for a US CPA to get this designation. I mean, I'm an employer myself. That would suggest that the person is ambitious, they want to move up, and they're looking particularly at something that is pitched at trying to move up in their finance career. So that's what I would suggest, is, again, that's signaling like, actually, hey, I want to learn. I want to do something here. My job is super valuable, yes, but I don't want to do it for 20 years. I want to move on and do something a bit at a higher level.
I love that you are pitching it as a growth engine. The process of signing up for to take the CGMA exam is a purposeful disruption in your life, that you're throwing yourself out of balance, and you're going to find your way back into balance. through that process of learning and growth, and that will take you to that next stage, that next step in your career. And employers really like to see that personal initiative of I'm going to choose to throw myself out of balance so that I can learn and grow and create a better personal economy for myself and be a better contributor to this business. So I really appreciate you taking us there. Hugh, before we break for a commercial, tell us about the it factor of your business, Procountancy. I've spent a long part of my career in the credential prep world, so I really love what you're doing. But there's lots of accountancy tuition providers out there. What makes you special?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? For me, this is my belief. I believe we are and will be the most global prep provider that there is in the market. And I don't just say that because we sell online and we sell to like over 45 different countries, which I will say is actually quite a big achievement if you're selling education products, because different countries will have different levels of awareness of these things. It's not like selling a chocolate or something that is sort of ubiquitous, right? What I would suggest is that when we say global, we really mean it. Like next month, I'm in China, I'm in Australia, I'm in Malaysia. The month after that, I'm in Zambia. I'm just back from Zimbabwe. I'm in South Africa. We have partners that we work with in Ukraine, UK, Ireland, the US, right? A big market for me. I'll be in Brazil later on this year. So when I say global, we really bring it there, right? We don't just sort of sell stuff. We're there doing education in front of you in those countries. And that's what I love. As an Irish person, right? We're like everywhere. If you look at a map of Irish diaspora, we're like spread out. There's millions of us all over the world. And I'm sort of taking that to my business, right? In a big way. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, well, right now, as we're taping this, the Scots are trying to beat the Irish in Boston. The diaspora in Boston, not at football or what we call soccer, but in drinking. All of the Sam Adams is gone. Because the Scots came to town. It's just hilarious watching the news, and it's not about football. It's about how much beer is being consumed. It's hilarious.
Yes.
All right. Well, Hugh, we're going to take a really short commercial break, and we'll be right back. We're going to do our mentorship moments together. Want to understand money, markets, and the economy to make better financial decisions? I'm Andy Temte. Join me every Saturday morning for Money Lessons with Andrew Temte on YouTube or your favorite podcast streaming service. And we're back with Hugh Martin talking about accountancy training. Hugh, let's start with our first mentorship moment of the show. You've got a sharp 20-year-old sitting across from you right now who's genuinely drawn to accounting, but they're kind of rattled by the current headlines because there's all sorts of doomsayers out there that keep insisting that artificial intelligence is just going to essentially hollow out the accountancy profession before they finish their degree even. And they are asking you point blank whether it's still worth pursuing an accounting degree and the CGMA and CPA and other credentials that follow. What do you tell them?
Well, it's a really good question. It's a genuine concern. I think, like if someone said that to me, first of all, you'd be thinking, wow, they're really switched on, right? And that's a good sign. So, what I would say is, yes, it is still worth it. Yes, it is still a good idea to get into the accountancy profession. Having now, and this is me like being super duper honest, right? I am an employer myself, right? And like having actually gone out and spent, my business's money on people's wages and salaries and selected people and so on, there are some skills that no matter which technology there is, being developed and advancing will always be valued, right? I mean, like you can have AI, and when you were basically doing what I'm doing, there was probably other technologies that people were saying were just going to completely wipe out the market. And of course, they have changed the market and changed the industry. But there are some skills that just are always desired by an employer, right? Like if someone is hardworking, someone is like it, and if I was 20 something years old, I'd be listening to myself going, this guy's been on LinkedIn for too long, right? All these soft skills. I used to think none of these are important, right? But actually recruiting people, you can learn AI skills. The stuff is out there. And to be honest with the AI is probably at that point not going to be too difficult to really deploy. I mean, even as it is, it's not super hard to use, is it? I mean, you just type into like a box, right? So like what I would say is like skills like being, having a level of discernment, right? Like, you know, when you work in a business, like being able to understand what should I say to this person, being a good communicator, like so undervalued that like it's crazy. So what I would say to this person is, yes, go for it, but work on those types of skills. You know, show that you're ambitious, show that you understand the nature of the business that you're interviewing for, have a genuine interest in the jobs that you are applying to. You know, it makes such a big difference. Even when you're being pitched to, right? And I think you have this. When someone is coming to you with a pitch and they've not done a single bit of research about your business, you know, you think to yourself, no amount of AI or any technology is really relevant here. I just don't want to work with this person. Even if they had the best thing ever to pitch to me, I'm like, look, they made no effort. So those types of skills, just conscientiousness, discernment, critical thinking, being hardworking, it's more of a characteristic than a skill. But like those types of things, they'll last forever. You know,
Yeah.
That's my view.
Yeah. Before the commercial break, you were explaining the CGMA credential, and in the back of my mind, I was thinking the two words business acumen were just kept ringing. That CGMA feels like a path to stronger business acumen, and this mentorship moment that you just provided this 20-year-old really centered around business acumen. So there's a real link between your answer for this 20-year-old who's thinking about accountancy. Accountancy is a great tool. It's a great set of tools to really understand how a business all interconnects in and through the organization. So thank you for that. Let's run another mentorship moment. Is number
Awesome.
2. Picture a U.S. CPA who's 3 or 4 years into an industry role. They might be working in FP&A, financial planning and analysis. Maybe they're on a controller track. They feel a little bit boxed in. They want a bigger seat at the table. They've heard about CGMA, aren't sure it's worth the effort. What would adding CGMA actually change for this individual?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, and as you said, we even touched on it there, business acumen, right? So one of the big things that you will gain from doing the exams behind the CGMA is the ability to critically think through business problems. And I think that is a huge, again, underrated skill, no matter how much AI proliferation there is in the world or in your business or, you know, going on around you in your industry. The reality is those types of skills are really, really, really useful, which you do get to practice as part of gaining that designation. I think that's really important. The other thing that I would say as well is that it gives you, I mean, in that CGMA, the G stands for global, right? And if you were a person who's working in a business that, you know, sells globally, or you are dealing with like a global supplier base, I think that is actually really underrated as well, right? Like, you know, having an awareness of, let's say, overall global corporate governance principles. Okay, now I have a better understanding of other businesses outside of the US. And also for me, like I have looked at things for US specifically, vice versa, right? So like I'm trying to sort of understand GAAP, IFRS, to get a global understanding. And I think that is really, really useful when you're working in a role like that and you may not be exposed directly to these things. This is giving you that avenue again to have a global understanding. And if for whatever reason you decide to move into, let's say, like a head office type role, or maybe you transfer to a different country, you'll have that understanding that'll carry with you. And I think it's just, to be honest, I think it's interesting anyways to understand how do accounting practices or risk management practices differ around the world. I find that quite interesting myself, just on a sort of intellectual level, taking career out of it. And I think, again, what we talked about, that signaling, I want to commit myself to professional development. It will help you. And just that alone, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to do 1 hour CP tax updates, which are super important. Actually, you're going to say, no, not doing 1 hour. I'm doing a little bit more than that this time around. I'm really taking a big step,
Yeah. Don't press the easy button to get your CPE. Dedicate yourself. 2 birds, 1 stone. Get the credential and your CPE all in one shot. I'm pretty sure that you can double count some of this, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Excellent. Hugh, what have we not talked about today that you want to make sure that our listeners take away from the conversation?
Well, it's something that I just want to touch on like really quickly is that, we talked about choosing accountancy as a career, and I'm obviously here and, I'm talking to someone who's been in the same position as me as an entrepreneur. The good thing about accountancy, and it's not really talked about much, is that it does give you the flexibility to become an entrepreneur if you decide to do that. You don't necessarily have to do what we did, which is like test prep, but like being a CPA or, having an accountancy background allows you to start your own practice, and I think that is actually really, really useful as a kind of a professional career to be able to move in and provide those types of services, which will always be around. There will always be a need for someone to do that type of work, either, nationally or internationally, whatever your ambition is. I think that's really powerful, like to have a career that you could do that. Just decide, I want to do this for myself. You know what I mean? Start my own practice.
Excellent. Yes, the entrepreneurship. Boy, if you're an entrepreneur in a startup environment, understanding accounting, management accounting it would be a real leg up. Hugh, let's go to our lightning round. I have 3 really quick questions for you. All right. Hugh Martin, you've just won a 100 million euro lotto jackpot, but there's a stipulation that 50% of your net winnings go to one philanthropic organization or a general cause. Who do you pick?
Right. For me, it would be our local dog rescue, right? I know it seems so sort of strange. It's like there's a million things that you could sort of give money to, right? That are all good causes. But I'm like a big dog guy, and it just is really close to my heart. I think they do fantastic work here in Ireland and abroad as well. Dog rescues, they need the money, and they do some really. I think the work that they do is very clear. It's like the outcome is really clear. I understand it, right? Like, there's dogs in need. They look after them. Sometimes they pull dogs out of like conflict zones and things like that. I just think it's amazing. So that's what I would do myself.
Think you are our first dog rescue answer there.
Yes.
That is awesome. Hugh Martin, I also give you access to a really small time machine, and you can send a message to an earlier version of Hugh Martin. What's the message and what previous version do you send it to?
Well, I'd love to talk to the person who started my business like two and a half years ago. I would definitely go back and I'd say, Hugh, please don't worry so much about the small stuff, right? I don't know if you were the same as me, but I just worried about, I remember one time there's like a rounding error of like €2 on the accounts, and I'm like worried about this. I'm thinking there's like a million things I could be doing more, worth more time and, all that kind of stuff. So I think I wasted a lot of time panicking and worrying instead of focusing on sort of the bigger picture, right?
So rounding error is indeed that rounding error. Hugh, we're all works in progress. We're all learning and growing. What are you focused on right now in your personal journey of growth?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be super honest, right? For me, and I think it's like, it's funny the name, balancing act, right? If I was to say in my life right now what it's like a 400-ton brick on one side of the scale and then a 2-ton brick on one, right? So it's completely out of whack. When you're really into your business, sometimes you can just become obsessed and like work a million hours and stuff. And I think I'm trying slowly to be, a better family guy, to sort of like, stay healthy as well, right? I mean, it's really difficult, but I mean, that's what I'm focused on because I'm here for the long run. And I think that, there's only so much obviously you need to like be, hardworking, whatever, but there's only so much you can do the really crazy stuff. And, I think I need to be a little bit, more long-term in my thinking.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice, especially in the mid-career stage where everything seems to all be crashing together at exactly the same time. Family, job, life, it's all everything all at once, as they say. So, very good that you're aware of that. Hugh, where can folks get a hold of you?
Well, the best place you can get me is LinkedIn. I'm like a LinkedIn addict, right? So if you go into LinkedIn and just type in Hugh Martin, you'll see me. Well, hopefully, if everything's set up the right way, you'll see me first, right? If everything is the way it should be. If you don't, you can type Hugh Martin CGMA and I'll definitely come up the top, right? There's plenty of Hugh Martins, but I think I'm probably the most famous one on LinkedIn. As well, you can get me on hugh@procountancy.com if you want to email me directly, or just go to procountancy.com. We have WhatsApps, we have whatever, you can contact me straight away. And I'll be happy to answer your questions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Hugh.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really, really cool.
All right. Well, my name is Andy Tempty, and this is the Balancing Act Podcast. You can find the show on all the major streaming services as well as out on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public educational good with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and maybe a neighbor down the street. The show was produced by Nicholas Tempty, and we'll see you next time on The Balancing Act.